Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of our Justice and Pieces guest speaker series, our fourth one here for the day. And as always, the views and opinions are of the candidates alone, and they don't reflect me, Justice and Pieces, Trials College, or any other education institution or organization I'm affiliated with. Wrapping up our long day, and then we've talked to four different uh, Good Governance Coalition candidates. We have Jennifer joining us. So, first of all, thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
And Jennifer, maybe you can start. You can tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. I'm a lawyer. I've been practicing for 21 years now. I'm a partner of a small firm called Wood Gold, and we're based in Peel Region. We have an office in Brampton and Mississauga. I practice family law and wills, and family law is really the bulk of the work that we do at the firm. I'm also the past president of the Women's Law Association of Ontario. I currently sit on the board of Legal Aid Ontario and Pro Bono Ontario, and I'm a part-time adjudicator at the Ontario Land Tribunal. I'm a daughter of immigrant parents and the mom of two kids, a dog, and two cats.
Perfect. That was very concise there. And perhaps maybe you can now tell us why you are running for Venture.
There are a couple of reasons why I'm running. One is that I would like to see greater supports for those in solo practice or at small firms. I would like to see greater inclusion in the legal profession. I was recently at a call to the bar ceremony, and just it was so wonderful to see the diversity of candidates being called to the bar, and it was so inspiring and wonderful to see that it's very different from when I was called. And so I would like to see a legal profession for both lawyers and paralegals that's inclusive, that creates space and has adequate support so that everyone can thrive in practice. I also want to see good leadership at the Law Society. I want to see leadership I can be proud of. Like, I think ventures should represent good leadership and exhibit leadership skills, including collaboration and really listening to whether it's lawyers, to different constituencies, essentially paralegals, the public, and assessing the needs of them and making decisions that are informed in that way. And again, mindful of our fiduciary duty if for ventures and if I am elected.
Now, with that, I mean, this election certainly there's been it's not it's different than any other election, right? Because you have on one side the Full Stop group and members of the Stop group from before, and then you have the Good Governance Coalition that you're a part of here. And it's interesting because, again, the dynamic of slates and whether they should be used or groups organizing together. And it creates some sort of criticism of your coalition in that you're saying that the problem from the last election, or again, loosely sort of paraphrasing of a group for vote splitting purposes, right? Because you had the 22 of them together and then everyone's sort of on their own. And now we've created our own group, which 45 strong, right? 40 lawyers and 5 paralegals. And if we are elected, we will look into electoral reform, which will assess whether slates are needed in the first place, right? Or to do away with them, perhaps, depending on how that reform goes, which kind of creates this, well, does that even make sense? Because their slate is bad, our slate is good. And if we're in, we'll get rid of slates altogether. So kind of sort of a circular argument. I'm not sure, but maybe you could help us all make sense as some of your colleagues have in answering this question.
Yeah, I hope I can. It's rather surprising that there's this much interest and controversy over what's essentially a board member role, which really shouldn't be that exciting. But it has become exciting, I guess, and controversial and divisive. And Yeah, so in 2019, the Stop Stop Slate was formed, and their platform was essentially to eliminate the statement of principles. And I'm sure many of your listeners have heard this from others who have chatted with you. And all well and good. The statement of principles was eliminated, and I don't think anyone's going back to that. But over the course of the last 4 years, there's been a lot of rhetoric that has been aimed at eliminating equity initiatives that are offered at the Law Society, such as the Discrimination Harassment Council, education around equity, diversity, and inclusion, and other things. And it was really disheartening to see over the last 4 years, being a racialized woman, being somebody who has been very involved with the Women's Law Association of Ontario, which is very much about creating equality and equity and change for women and other equity seeking groups and individuals in our profession. And it's been sort of one sort of shocking experience after another over the last 4 years. Things like controversy over a professional name reader. Like, really, like, I really wish someone had pronounced my last name correctly at convocation, and I was called to the bar with my maiden name, which is a long South Indian name, Nelupura, which hardly anyone can pronounce unless you're from that specific area in India. So, I think, something like that, you would think having a professional name reader is a kindness, and it signals that you're welcome in this profession, and we care and we want you to feel included. But to vote against that, it was rather surprising. And so things like that have really upset me over the years. And it's part of the reason why I decided to run, to create some change. And just with the way voting works, last election, it seems that the people who voted for candidates who were more progressive and supported accessibility, equity, inclusion in the legal profession, that vote got split. And so in order to avoid that and to avoid having a majority at convocation that is primarily made up of the Stop Stop or Full Stop slate, the coalition was formed, and I chose to be a part of it to affect that change. Now, do I like the fact that there are two groups or parties? I don't know what you want to call us, but running, no, it certainly creates a sense of discomfort, because you would think, an election for becoming a board member essentially shouldn't require being part of a group. But unfortunately, the way voting works, I think it's the best solution so that the progressive vote is not split. Now, whether we should continue to have elections proceed in this way, I'm not comfortable with it proceeding in this way, and I'm not sure yet how to change that. How do you really prevent that? And do you prohibit people from running as in a group? I don't know. So I think we'll have to see. And I'm open to all kinds of ideas and suggestions. One thing I would like to say about the coalition, though, is that we are not like a political party. We don't vote the same way. We're not required to take the same line on different things. And we all come to it with various ideas about how to do things. And we hope through, gathering information and, having meaningful discussion, we can arrive at good solutions.
Yeah, because I mean, I think certainly interesting if there is a conversation of reform and whether it's less people altogether, whether it's maybe less votes, right? I mean, then you could take the top 40, but we don't necessarily need to have 40 votes, or regional voting, right? I mean, there's a number of different things that have been shared and discussed that it'd be interesting to see if there's a change needed following the elections there, but. Besides electoral reform that members have sort of said we'll look at, everyone has their own sort of issues that they want to bring to the table. And Jennifer, maybe you can share if you are elected, what are the things that you'd like to see discussed at convocation?
One of the things I mentioned was better supports for people in solo and small firms, especially women. I'm particularly concerned about women who are running their own firms and then have children and want to take a parental leave, and even men too who are running their own firm and want to take a parental leave. Um, there isn't much in place. Like your choice is essentially to pay into employment insurance, and then you'll receive some EI benefits, but that's certainly not going to cover the overhead of your business. So I hear of many parents going back after, a couple weeks or, 3 months if they're lucky. I know when I took a parental leave with my second, there was a program in place that provided a fixed amount to people, I think in firms of five and less. I think it was maybe $3,000 or $3,500 for 3 months. So at least you could cover some of the overhead with respect to your practice. That essentially doesn't exist anymore because I was only contingent on there, not being other benefits available. And because there are EI benefits available, although rather modest, that is no longer available. So that's one of the issues that I'd like to examine again and get feedback from lawyers in small and solo practice about what we can do to make that easier so that they're not bearing the burden of parenthood and running a firm right off the bat at the same time. So
Yeah, so I mean, and I guess in the election as well, right? There's the message of the Law Society may have lost their ways and bloat, creep, and woke in terms of the messaging there from the Full Stop group, and to what you just brought up there in terms of supports for small and solo practitioners, and in particular on parental leave. I guess the question that comes around is kind of what should the Law Society's role be, and what maybe should be coming from other communities, right? I mean, you mentioned the Women's the Women's Law Association of Ontario that you were involved with, as well as other organizations. Maybe what can they do? What should the Law Society be doing? What maybe the Law Society should be doing more of, or what the Law Society not need to do, right? I mean, I guess that's kind of something to look at in terms of when we come into costs and fees and everything like that, of what can we do, but what can be done maybe elsewhere, and even in the context of like the law libraries and stuff like that as well.
yeah, so first of all, like in terms of equity initiatives, the Law Society, my understanding that's only 1 or 2% of the budget. Really, it's not a big ticket item. I personally believe in, essentially running a tight ship, and that comes from my values as a lawyer in a small firm, and also the daughter of immigrant parents. You don't waste money, you don't waste resources, but at the same time, the more we can support lawyers in the profession, the less likely I believe we're going to see problems down the road around lawyers being sued, law society complaints, fraud, malpractice, whatever it is. So I consider it as an investment right up front that lawyers are, that they're supported around competency, that they have adequate mentorship, and some of that mentorship is really linked to our law libraries and law associations. They are a tremendous support for many lawyers. Even myself, I'm a member of the Peel Law Association and the Halton, the County Law Association, and the networking support you get from those associations. Some of them have mentorship programs, and the law libraries are incredible resources in terms of providing space, research support, access to various software that, as a sole practitioner, might be very expensive. So, turning back to the issue of bloat and creep, first of all, I don't really know what that refers to. It's a very simplistic kind of way of describing maybe something that might be more complex. But, I wouldn't just say like I'm going to cut law society fees for members without having an exact plan of what exactly is going to be cut. And frankly, for me, it wouldn't be equity initiatives at the Law Society. and there wouldn't be supports for solo lawyers and solo and small practice, such as the libraries. I don't think those are big line items. If you want to look at bigger line items, you're going to be looking at, what's being spent on the compensation fund because lawyers defraud their clients, right? And how do we mitigate against that? And that's a conversation we need to have. And I think, personally, I think if you invest in lawyers at the outset so that they can succeed in practice, then you're going to see less of that on the back end, less tribunal hearings, less claims to the compensation fund.
Yeah, I mean, and certainly it only takes a few big cases, right, to deplete that fund and the multi-million-dollar losses there, right, that need to be replenished. So what in terms of, you mentioned sort of on the front end, what are some things then, again, the law study could be doing or doing better of to potentially reduce on the back end the need to discipline, right, which often is like one of the biggest items, right? I mean, the whole process, from investigations all the way if it goes to a hearing. But I mean, what can be done there to kind of reduce the costs and then look at using those savings into some of the initiatives you've been talking about?
Yeah, so I think in some cases, and I could be wrong, but it seems there's a bit of an all or nothing approach with respect to complaints against lawyers and how they're handled and how they proceed to the tribunal. And I would like to see a greater emphasis on alternate ways of settling these cases. And what I mean by that is, looking at the severity of the complaint or misconduct and crafting a remedy that is going to help the lawyer and at the same time give confidence to the public that the Law Society is regulating the profession in a suitable way. And I would have to, I'm not going to say I have a plan with details about how that would happen, but I think that's a conversation we need to have as benchers and with the staff at the Law Society about how we can look at the underlying reasons maybe for the misconduct and see how we could address them in other ways than just disbarring or suspending.
Yeah, because I know, I mean, I don't know if I kind of got a little bit of pieces there. There was sort of an issue about whether sort of balancing due process with, I think, enhancing powers at I think it's the proceedings and PAC there in terms of the committee of what can they do and is that okay? And is this kind of too much? Or will this be a way to reduce the ones that would go to a potential hearing and which would then save money, right? I mean, it's sort of, some would say there's no amount of money saved on due process, obviously, right? If people are not getting a fair shake through their process, and especially if it's public knowledge afterwards that there may be issues with that. And then again, on the other side, it's exactly what you brought up. Well, if all of these go to a hearing, then we're going to have no choice but to perhaps increase or cut from somewhere else that may be more vital to our field. So what would I mean, I don't know if you're more kind of attuned to exactly what's being said there, but looking at that point of how do you balance due process with, again, getting things done efficiently.
Right. Like, I think you'd agree with me that tribunals are expensive institutions or creatures. And I do feel due process is very important, procedural fairness. But at the same time, as a family lawyer, you can have a proceeding, but you can also have a settlement conference, and you can always canvass different ways to address the concern or the complaint. I think, from lawyers I've talked to, a lot of, some of the misconduct issues they've faced have been at times where they've been, dealing with extreme stress, mental health issues, personal loss. And, for those lawyers, it would be nice to see that there is an option for them to get sorted out, get the help they need so that they can practice and serve their clients well, as opposed to, proceeding to tribunal and being prosecuted essentially and humiliated, obviously, because it's published. But I think there are a lot of cases where we can divert those individuals so that there are different or private options in place so that their reputation isn't publicly ruined. But it depends on the case, obviously.
Yeah, and certainly, of course, in the public interest as well, right? That again, I think, I mean, not just on this issue, but I mean, some of the other issues we've talked about, right, and others have talked about, and even just the overall concept, right? Is, I mean, it's a board in the public interest, but elected by lawyers and paralegals, and then you kind of are you loyal to the lawyers and paralegals that elected to you, but you're supposed to have a fiduciary duty to the public. And I guess one of the sometimes criticisms is, well, there's, I mean, I think there's even groups that are like, lawyers protecting their own in terms of the tribunals, right? That they're saying that the punishments aren't as strong, and again, you get all of this public mandate versus the profession, right? And I guess maybe looking at it more generally, I mean, you can certainly look at it from the tribunal perspective there, but more generally in terms of the election, how do you reconcile again that now you got to have this fiduciary duty for the public mandate, but you're campaigning for votes from lawyers, and
Yeah.
afterwards they're going to say, Jennifer, I voted for you, but this doesn't really help me as a solar practitioner.
Yeah, no, but I don't think those values have to be, opposed to each other. I think supporting lawyers in practice, making the regulation of the profession easier on them in whatever way we can is important so that they can focus on doing good work for their clients, right? And so I think we can achieve some of the burden of the regulatory responsibilities of lawyers through technology, perhaps. Like, I'm always interested in thinking creatively and looking at other options. But I don't believe assisting lawyers in practice and helping them thrive contradicts the public interest in any way. I think if anything, it'll make them better lawyers so that they can better serve their clients.
Now, Jennifer, besides what we've already talked about, I don't know if there's anything else you want to highlight in terms of, if you're elected, that you'd like to really see the Law Society focus on. And again, being one voice out of 53, it doesn't necessarily mean you can come here and say, I guarantee we're going to do this and this and that. But what would you like to see sort of more discussed at the Law Society?
I don't think they're, we know what issues are at stake. Definitely, changes in technology and innovation is going to definitely change the way we practice in 10 or 20 years. And I think we should be talking more about that. I think we need to look at leadership that reflects the makeup of lawyers in Ontario. For many years, benchers have only been a small percentage of women, and it would be nice to see more women at convocation. And we could realize that in this election if people decide to vote for the coalition, the Good Governance Coalition. I also, essentially just want to have a law society that I can be proud of. Like, I just want benchers to be individuals I can be proud of, that have demonstrated through their actions and experience that they can lead effectively, and they can lead with people of different opinions and diverse perspectives. I think that is the hallmark of a great leader. And I just want to share a little story. For 10 years, until a couple years ago, I sang in a competitive barbershop chorus. And I was one of the few racialized women in that chorus. And I felt, a little awkward, out of place. And at times, it felt like I wasn't included. For instance, they had like a makeup program, like essentially, this is the makeup you have to wear. And none of it addressed my darker skin tone. And so it was not a makeup plan for me. And they said, oh, you just do whatever you usually do. Okay. But this was a chorus of a very diverse in the sense of age, although we were all women. There were young women in their 20s, 30s, and women in their 70s, and different, not necessarily different racial backgrounds, but different religious backgrounds, raised in different places, in Ontario or abroad, and very opinionated people, like difficult at times. And as I continued with this group, I was able to, I became a section leader. I went on the management team and became the team leader or whatever. But it was so challenging dealing with women with very different opinions. However, it worked. And it worked because we had a common vision, and it was a vision of excellence. And I think we all want that in our profession. We want a profession we can be proud of. And so there are ways to go about this by listening, which you do in music. You listen a lot. And that's one way we achieve excellence. By balance, balancing the different voices that are present, but making sure they all shine. So I take some of that personal experience as a singer and in a group of about 30 women, and hope to share some of that at Convocation.
Now, Jennifer, last couple of questions here. There are students listening, and as they look to go into the profession, they have a lot to look forward to, and certainly you have a lot of experience there in different roles. Any words of wisdom that you can share with them? And thanks again for joining us here today.
Oh, I would say just let yourself shine. Just be the gift that you are, and have confidence in that, and be proud of that. Be proud of your history, your life, no matter what you've experienced, whether hard or easy, challenging, joyful, whatever it is. Bring all of that to whatever you do, because there is wisdom in that you can share with others.
And the final question, and perhaps the most important question, when all of the lawyers that are listening are going to the voting booth, or the virtual voting booth. They got the instructions today with the voting guide as well. Why should they use one of those votes on you?
I think because I care, and I care not only about my cohort of lawyers or my generation. I care about future generations, and that's why I'm doing this. I'm doing this for the next generation, not my own.
Perfect. So once again, thanks for taking the time to join us, and thanks for everyone for tuning in. Take care.
Thank you.